Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the day two of Eureka 2020 Mentoring Week. We'll now be beginning with our session one. The session one will be given by Purvi Bajaj on the topic Embedding Collaboration in Everyday Apps. Purvi Bajaj works at Cisco as the Collaboration Architect for India based in Mumbai. Purvi joined Cisco from AGC Networks, where she had a 12-year tenure and has held a variety of positions, including solution manager, technical consultant, and regional leader. Purvi joined Cisco with extensive technical background across UC and CC and has worked across deeply with customers in India, Philippines, Australia, Middle East, and the US. She brings with her a rich experience driving successful technical sales to large mark customers across the region. She holds a Bachelor of Engineering in Electrical Department from Mumbai University. In her spare times, she enjoys reading and is an accomplished Bharatanatyam dancer. So, Purvi, we welcome you to the session, and I now hand over the stage to you.
Thank you so much, Soumya, and it's absolutely fantastic to be with all of you today. Um, when I was preparing for this, session with all of you guys today, I was telling my coordinator that this one's unique. We present to customers and CIOs and CTOs all the time, but I think presenting to young minds like yours is going to be a very unique experience for me, and one that I'm really looking forward to. Right. So, with no offense to anyone, I always thought that it was easy to present to the older generation, and then I could get away with saying and doing a lot of things. But you guys are sharp, and you're right at the edge of the technology. So I think today we're going to have a lot of fun in this session. I'm not here to really propagate or talk about Cisco and our technologies, although, yes, I will speak a little bit about it. But the idea is to sort of spark some sort of, you know, imagination in your minds in terms of the needs that we see in the real world, and how you could embed, like I said, collaboration in everyday applications, right? Um, so, without further ado, let me start off. Uh, One last thing about me, I love questions. So, I absolutely thrive on them. As you can probably see in my background, I have a little girl back home, and my favorite questions are always why. So, feel free to ask me as many questions as you guys like. Put them on chat, I think, and I'll try and answer as many of them as I can. Okay. So, I always like to start by giving a context of why we do what we do, right? So, and I absolutely love this particular slide because I truly believe in this, right? That Amazon did not kill the, the corner kirana walas, and Uber did not kill the Kali Pili market, or Netflix did not kill the cable networks, right? It was not technology by itself which can bring about disruption. It's about the changing needs of customers. And if for anything, right, this pandemic has taught us exactly this, right? So it's taught us not only how we collaborated or did business with each other in the past, how everything could change literally overnight, and not just that, right? But the resiliency of the human race and how quickly we adapted to this new way of meeting, of discussing, of conducting business. So, okay, this one's a pop quiz, right, for all of y'all. And I don't know if many of y'all, I assume, follow the tech world. So, what do you think was the most expensive acquisition of 2020 in the tech world? Any guesses by anyone? I think you can put them on slide on chat for me. I'd love to know what you all think about it.
Hello, Purvi. So sorry to disturb, but I think that the audio is not so clear. Like
Is
the
it?
participants. Yeah.
Um, okay. I don't know. I can try to adjust my headphones if that helps. Is it any better now, or should I switch my headphones altogether? Is it still bad, the audio?
It's slightly better, but it'll be good like if you are
Okay,
able to switch it.
give me a second then.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, is this any better? Some better, a lot better.
Yes, Purvi, I think this is much better. Yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead.
all right, awesome. So yeah, so the most expensive acquisition of 2020 was the one that Salesforce did of Slack. So Salesforce bought a company called Slack for a whooping $27.7 billion. Okay, so by far, it's one of the biggest acquisitions we've seen in the tech world in the recent past, right? Now, the real question here that at least I thought about, and I'm sure all of y'all are thinking about, is why did Salesforce, spend so much money on a company called Slack, right? So I don't know how many of y'all know what Slack does, but Slack was basically an inter as well as intra organization messaging company, right? So all Slack did was basically give you an enterprise version of WhatsApp, if you will, among other things. And Slack's probably going to hate me for saying this, but yeah, enterprise WhatsApp. And Salesforce went and acquired Slack. Um, the pundits, right, the trade pundits, and all of us really believe that the reason Salesforce did this was because Salesforce is a great CRM, right? They have acquired significant market share in the last 18 to 24 months. They've got, they're across verticals. So you find them in banking, you find them in IT, you find them in all sorts of verticals. But what Salesforce also realized was that unless you go and embed the ability for people to communicate with each other, whether it's through messaging, whether it's by calling, whether it's meetings, whether it's having webinars like this, the utility and the penetration that you're going to be able to do within an enterprise is going to always be limited. Right? Um, Now, obviously, from a trend standpoint, right, what we see as technology people within the work environment is that workforce is definitely more dispersed. It's more mobile. It's all remote in view of the current pandemic. We have more and more online meetings. We have more collaboration. What that obviously also unfortunately means is that you don't ever switch off. You're just at it all the time. But nobody really wants to learn or has the time probably even to learn new technology, right? The example that I love to give in this case is that the technology has to be simple enough for my father to adopt, not my daughter. Okay, but it has to be cool enough to impress my daughter. So, I mean, it's about sort of meeting those two ends of the spectrum, where it's simple enough, where people don't struggle, things are obvious, but it's also about how cool you can make it, how feature rich you can make it. And obviously, different customers are always going to have different needs. A banking customer will have very different security needs from a manufacturing customer. But a manufacturing guy will have a very different mix of people who are going to use those tools compared to a bank. Uh, so again, and at the end of all of this, right, experience matters. So, we want to, you know, make sure that we have the best possible experience when we're doing all of this. And think of it, right? If you're going to spend 10 or 12 hours of your day on a particular tool, then you really do want it to be easy and seamless and simple and all those good things in life. So, thinking about that, right? We One of the things that the pandemics probably taught a lot of customers as well is the fact that poor employee engagement and what you do, and the only reason I say this is that a lot of y'all are going to be young entrepreneurs who are going to come up with cool apps. Some of them will be customer facing. Some of them could probably just increase productivity within the organization. But remember this, right? Poor employee engagement, like if it's not cool, if it's not easy for people within the organization to use, then most likely your customers are not going to love it in the long run. Obviously, right? Global workforces are not as engaged as they used to. I can't go and grab my colleagues and say, come, let's go grab a coffee at Starbucks while we discuss the funnels for next week and stuff like that, right? And then obviously, there are days when I don't even want to log in at 9 in the morning. And this is all just a lot of um, tech fatigue, as we call it, because maybe our work flows or the apps that we live and breathe in aren't as integrated as we would love them to be. It doesn't seem natural sometimes then. People tend to get overwhelmed because you're switching between so many different apps, and then you're just after a point you're like, okay, oh my god, just stop, right? Uh, so from our perspective, from Cisco perspective, for us, what's important is the single platform, and we want to try and do everything that we do on this one single platform and deliver everything um, to do the best possible experiences when we delivering a particular workload. Right? So if we're calling people, the voice quality has to be great. It has to be simple. It has to be integrated. I should be able to call people at the click of a button. I shouldn't have to go on a wild goose chase trying to find which number I have to call on. If I want to meet a person, my audio should work, my video should work, my content sharing should work. I should have an inclusive meeting. I should have people from different parts of the world, for example, who are on my meeting, and offer them real-time translation services, so that just because I speak English and not French or German or Spanish, people lose out on the meeting. I don't want to do mundane tasks. I want somebody to take notes for me while I'm in the meeting, right? So I'm sure you get the drift, right? We want to use the power of the platform, and we just want to make every experience the best possible experience we could have. So for us, there are just very simple three guiding principles, right? It has to be engaging, because if I can't engage with you, you're going to switch off. I'm really hoping most of you haven't done that in my session already. But yeah, I mean, it has to be engaging. I have to be able to connect, even if we have thousands of kilometers between us. It has to be intelligent, because a dumb system is just no good, right? A system that allows you to just come and meet and talk to people is just it's just not going to cut it anymore. Can I make it do more? Can I make it take meeting notes? Can I make it drown background noise if my daughter decides to suddenly break into song? Uh, and then finally, it needs to be inclusive, right? And then I was just going through the attendee list earlier while we were waiting to get started, and I'm very pleasantly surprised by the number of girls that I saw as a part of the attendee list. The sad but true fact of life is that there just aren't enough of us women in the workforce today, and one of the reasons for that is the fact that a lot of us, it's not about the education in most cases. It's not about lack of opportunity, but it's probably just that we're always trained and coached that we're primary caregivers, and family, taking care of a family is a ownership that we carry. And a lot the number of women who quit the workforce after they have a family is not even funny, right? How can I make a platform which is more inclusive? So how can I get more people in the workforce, make it more inclusive? So if there is a stay-at-home mom, but she's okay to work for 4 hours and she has the credentials to work, can I get her a platform that is going to allow her to do exactly that, right? So, I mean, that's what we mean by inclusion. That the fact, like I said earlier about translations, just because you don't understand English doesn't mean you shouldn't participate, right? So, overall inclusion of the platform, and these are the only three guiding principles that we have. The reason, again, I say this to all of you young entrepreneurs is because probably these are really good fundamentals for you to start thinking about technologies and app stacks that you're going to build. Right? If you kind of achieve two out of these three, you're in a really good place. So obviously, and then I kind of spoke about this. So I'm not going to belabor this point. Like I said earlier, I'm not really here to give you yarn on WebEx or what Cisco does, but to sort of fire your imagination of what you could possibly do with a platform like this. So obviously, we hear this buzzword a lot, right? And then as incredibly old as it makes me feel, artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks, all of these data analysts, data scientists wasn't a thing when I was studying, right? It just wasn't. I mean, AI was some really cool robotic stuff that NASA did. And then neural networks was just this fuzzy logic that some mathematicians in Stanford were trying out. So yeah, but today AI and ML and deep learning and neural networks and data lakes, they are a part of our everyday life. They touch each one of us whether or not we realize it. From the ads that YouTube plays every time you try and play a video, to the must watch that Netflix shows us based on our profiles, we are being touched by artificial intelligence and deep neural networks in every possible aspect of our lives. So we want to make the same AI work for us as well, right? So some of the things that, for example, we do in our meetings is talk about transcriptions, translations, gesture recognition. So one of the, I mean, I would love to be in a webinar like this, for example, presenting to you guys. And if only each one of y'all could just show me a thumbs up rather than go and hit it somewhere on your screens, and I could get that notification, right? I mean, how cool would that be? Or if, let's say I wasn't smiling enough, or if you guys were frowning or yawning at whatever I was talking, and if I could get a notification of that, how cool would that be? I mean, that's the kind of experience, and that's the kind of embedding of artificial intelligence that we're talking about within all sorts of applications today. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves in doing, and again, I'll say this, right? When you build your applications, technologies, products portfolio that we carry. Um, we work with wearables, right? So Google Glasses or some of the other MI wear, etc., to see how we can embed technology within these wearables. So again, tele dentistry uh, would mean that if I want to show a dentist my toothache, which is right at the back of my mouth, or like my molar or my wisdom tooth, I'm going to have tools which give me access, and then I'm going to have a platform that gives me image enhancement as well as magnification. So these are just some of the examples of what we're doing at Cisco to, yeah, aid industries like telemedicine, teledentistry, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so the next question is that on the IT support slide, you mentioned about the dialogue and the intent based on conversational bot. So could you throw some light on it and what tools were used for its development?
Oh, so conversational bots, conversational IVRs, that's one space which is absolutely exploding, right? So, of course, you've got the biggies. So, you've got Google, for example, who's a very, very big player in the AI space with Google Dialogflow and their speech engines. But you have a lot of startups, lot of entrepreneurs who are doing a lot of these NLP based engines for intent identification. So we have a whole bunch of them: vernacular.ai, senseforth.ai, active.ai, Nani. There's, I mean, if you could go and Google them, and you can just say conversational plus AI and say startups, and you'll probably get like a list of at least 100 of them, if not more. But yeah, it's a space that is absolutely exploding. We want, and then at Cisco, we're looking at ways in which we can give customers more and more choices, right? So there are customers who love Google, but there's somebody else who loves an IBM Watson, and then there's a third guy who loves Microsoft Cortana and GUI, and then there's a fourth guy who loves Lex and Lambda, and then the fifth guy wants accent identification. So it's a crowded space, but at the same time, it's a really really exciting space to be in. So yeah, I mean, we integrate with all of them. We work with all of them. It really depends on what the customers want or what their specific use cases are.
Okay, so the next question is what all technical teams are involved for the formulation of an app startup?
I okay, I can give this a go. I'm honestly not any expert on it, but some guys that you should think about when you want to do an app startup, uh, get a really good UX UI guy, right? Or somebody who really understands you will be surprised at how many apps fail only because of bad UX and UIs, right? So get a really good UX UI guy. Get somebody who's really good with infrastructure. So when I say infrastructure, I don't mean like servers and stuff, but somebody who really understands nodes, for example, or somebody who really understands scalability, somebody who really understands disaster recovery and high availability and transfer of data and syncing databases. You're going to need these guys if you're going to have an app stack which is of any relevance and which is going to scale up to a particular limit, right? So you're going to need a good Kubernetes guys, for example, or somebody who understands Docker really well, somebody who understands that part of the app stack really, really well. The third person that you're probably going to need is somebody who has a really good pulse of what customers want, right? Of business use cases. Because trust me, I've been doing sales for almost 18 years now. God, that makes me feel old. But yeah, 18 years now. And I have never sold anything to anybody unless it is going to help them make money or save money. Right. So if you can't do one of these two things, don't sell it. And to get to that sweet spot of what the customers want, get a really good business oriented guy, right? So this guy doesn't need to be glib and flamboyant. He doesn't need to be the best sales guy. He just needs to know how to call out implicit needs of customers. So there are explicit needs. There is something that the customer is telling you they want, but there is something which is an implicit need. Think of those guys. And then finally, get a really good security guy. Because no matter what you do and which industry you want to cater to, security conversations will always come up. The sooner they come up, the better it's going to be for you, but they will always 100% come up. So, yeah, I mean, at a broad level, right? I'm sure it's probably going to be a lot of more people, but at a very broad level, you will need these four kinds of people.
So, can you comment upon the future of progressive web apps?
Progressive web apps. Again, I'm no expert on web apps, to be honest, but I can tell you this that the web app space, the reactive or responsive app space is something that is gaining a lot of momentum. People, I think, don't understand truly the value of having a really good progressive app or a reactive app or something that is self-learning, but that's a trend that is catching up. Today, I think the biggest problem with building good progressive reactive apps is also the availability of data and the analytics of this data and how you use it. But yeah, I mean, it is something which we see as a growing trend for sure. And I'm sorry, I probably haven't done enough justice to this, but my area of expertise is.
Okay, so the last question for today, like, can Cisco help in POS dashboard in startups? POS dashboard for startups.
POS dashboards.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question at all. I think Lakshmi is also there on this call from Cisco, and I don't know if Lakshmi understands this question better than I do, but I at least don't understand the question at all.
Okay, so like we have another question as well. Like Raghu says that they are into online collaboration skills development. So whom should they collaborate within Cisco, and how can Cisco help in them?
Okay, so you can get in touch with Lakshmi. Is on the call with us today, and I think maybe Lakshmi can put out his email ID if that's okay or whatever. Drop in a note. Cisco actually runs a program to support young entrepreneurs, and if things do work out well, we're happy to help. It was absolutely my pleasure, and I hope the guys got something out of this session, something useful. Uh, Good luck to everyone on this call.
Thank you so much, Purvi.
Thanks, guys.
So the next session will be beginning within 10 minutes. So please hang on in here and we'll be beginning the next session soon. Thank you.
excellence that you intend to deliver is perceived and understood and accepted by your consumer, because that is when your referrals will start and that is when your sales will happen. And that will only happen once the fitment is there between what is it that you intend to offer and what has actually landed up in the hand of the consumer. And that is what defines your ability to match the two domains very clearly. The entire the entire game of product market fit sits in this: what is it that you're communicating, how is it that you're communicating, and eventually how is that communication translating into delivery at the customer point, who's the end user. Now, if you want to figure out, and we'll delve into the aspect of the end user and delivery of the product on in the next slide. This is to achieve, therefore, this product market fit, you have to undergo a certain transition stage. You have to identify your target customer very, very accurately. And, and it's been observed a number of times that is where the first wrong step happens. If you're not able to identify exactly who your target customer is, your delivery matrix will all go haywire. That target customer's pain point, and remember one thing: you may think that the pain point is, whatever you perceive. The customer needs to accept that pain point. And not only has he got to accept that pain point, he has to accept that it is a pain which actually is happening. If it is a pain point which is there, but I can live with it, or I don't care a damn about it, it's not solving a problem. And therefore, it's very necessary to identify who's the customer, what are the pain point you're addressing, and that pain point has to be relevant to the customer at that point in time when you intend to go in. One more thing which is very important when you go around this is that you need to be very focused. The problem with most of the products and developers of product or product service is that you tend to become too broad based. The more broad basing you do of your product delivery and your satisfaction from the product delivery, the more high possibility that you will land up not achieving a fitment. The moment you not achieve the fitment, you've got trouble in your hand. So you define, and that is when you need to identify a customer, identify the problem that the customer is facing. And all these things require a lot of interaction. Then you need to, after that, define the value proposition for that target customer basis the pain point that you've mutually agreed with the customer is actually being faced by the customer.
Um,
And what, sorry?
so sorry to interrupt, sir. Can you share the presentation in full screen mode? The participants are.
Oh, sorry. How do I do that?
Yes, you
Yeah,
said.
is it Maggie? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
right. Sorry, my mistake. So once you do that, you once you've defined the value proposition, you've identified the customer. That is when you get down to measuring a PMF. Once the product market fitment has been measured, what you need to then take care of is that a customer's needs, basis the delivery that you're giving, will refine itself or change itself. And your ability to match up to that change is very, very important. If you do not re engineer the change, you will land up having a situation where you will lose the customer again. Because to accept that one product will go on forever is a very wrong concept and should not be believed on. So, complacency in delivery and satisfaction to the customer should never be coming into your system. This is the tricky part. People say that I'm a B2B product, so I have no individual customers. I'm not a B2C. The way I look at it is that even if it is a B2B product, when the beat at the end of the day, eventually it all lands up to a customer through the customer of the B2B enterprise that you are servicing. The end game is that down the value chain, somebody eventually is landing up satisfying a customer, an individual like you and me. And if that you and me is not getting satisfied, it's going to crop up the chain and hit back at you, even if you're a B2B guy. So it's very necessary that you need to identify what is the end user is an individual, and you have to keep in mind, even if you're a B2B guy, that you will focus on that individual eventually who's going to get the service out of the entire value chain that you're building up basis your product offering. And that is very important. That is what will help you uh, achieve the product market fitment accurately. To drive all of this and whatever I've spoken so far, there are two essential basic facts that need to be understood. One is you need to, as I said, focus on your target market. So, therefore, narrow down a group of people who could not manage without your product. So, the problem is tangible, real, perceived as a problem, and a small group. And then after that, you conduct interviews, take their opinions, get them to test out a beta, ask them to see whether it is helping solve the trouble area that they have. And this research is what's going to help you design a product market fitment with a product which will achieve the product market fitment for you and your enterprise. This is the clincher. We are all in the technical side, technology side, and technology is something which works best because when you're looking at a user or a customer, your best way to hold that customer back with you, what everybody calls as customer retention and customer loyalty, is not achieved unless A, your product service is technology so advanced that it's irreplaceable, or it is such that for the customer, the value proposition of changing to an alternative mode is not worth it. And I'll give you a very broad example on this one. Let's take SAP. SAP as an ERP solution is a tricky animal. But if I were to design an ERP solution today and go to a customer, there's a very low possibility of me cracking that code because the guy who's with the SAP has such levels of comfort and delivery happiness over SAP's product that to me to give a better animal would not work purely because the cost of change will be phenomenally high. And that is what you're trying to drive is that I'm going to drive a technology bargain. I'm going to drive a technology-driven capability such that the next guy is not going to get it easy. Remember, the trap most people fall into is that I will sell it cheap. The moment you are selling it cheap, you are down a slippery slope like nobody's business. Because the guy who's your competition will sell you, and if he's funded, he's going to make your life miserable. If he's not funded, still he's going to eat away at you. The moment when you're making a market by selling cheaper product, you are opening yourself to a large, what should I say, range of bullet fire, and you're not going to escape that. So your loyalty buildup has got to be totally price independent, has got to be totally service dependent, and loyalty. And technology is where you guys can do well. And technology is where we should develop. And one of the reasons why my fund says that we want to support technology is because that is the domain which will make sure that the loyalty comes because of the capability. And that's very important. And that's what you need to drive with your product. So this is about the product market fitment. So when do I enter the market then? When is it that I'm ready to enter the market? And when I've entered the market, what are the warning signs that I need to go back to the drawing board, if any? There are three critical factors. As I mentioned, the first one is the research data, where you interviewed a set of people who are actually identifying the problem that you are trying to solve, and the confidence you have built up with the testing of your product. Now, remember one thing, that the confidence is not on your side, but confidence is on the user side to understand that the beta that you have given for testing is actually solving the problem. And last but not the least is intuition. Intuition is something which you can't get away with in marketing, because I do not know how many people of you have heard this term called consumer behavior. In MBA, consumer behavior takes tomes and tomes of theory and models and what and what not. But at the end of the day, the hard reality is that defining or determining the behavior of a consumer is the most irrational and what should I say, unpredictable aspect of your business. You just do not know how the person is going to respond back, irrelevant of what models you have drawn in terms of consumer behavior. So the intuition bases your hard evaluation of the facts that have come up with research and testing is what's going to determine your time when you should enter the market. And that cannot be written off. And that's why people talk about having people with experience who will help you do hone up that intuition that now is the right time to go to the marketplace. Product market fit and MVP is the first step. Without that, anyway, you can't do anything, because you can't even go from beta testing. Do a lot of research. You are in the technology domain. I'm presuming most of you are in the technology domain or have developed product services in the product technology domain. The world is open to your product, and vice versa. So the threat may be coming from some remote corner of Mexico, which you wouldn't know is going to hit you tomorrow, because you don't know what's going on there. And therefore, it's very necessary to do a very thorough research of what is it that you're getting into, what is it that you're looking at, and what are the possible areas of hit that you will face once you are out there trying to get revenue for your business. Once you have the research and the trend analysis, the product market fit exercise done, the minimum viable product done and designed, tested multiple times, is when you get down to a hard, clear, thought out plan to enter the market. Don't look at a large market straight away. That does not serve the purpose. Always look at, and even big brands do this, look at pilots, look at doing small zones where you can, where you have the option of withdrawing back and making corrections further if required, rather than to do a large rollout and not deliver what you're committing to do, because that could be the end of your brand. So it's very necessary to do it in small lots, in small pockets. Focus on what it is that your entire strategy is going to be. Conduct the pilot and make sure that the delivery mechanism is going the full cycle before you decide to expand. Very, very necessary on that one. The warning risks are very clear. You will find, if you're generating a lot of leads and it's not converting into revenue, that's the first warning signal. That is the signal which is telling you that something's wrong, you got to correct it. Never hesitate to go back, take a step back, review the whole thing. Correction of a market ever. You'd rather make the mistakes and errors initially rather than later on. Second sign is when you people stall in the buying process. I'm thinking about it. It's not making sense to me. Let me try it a bit more. Or the prospective customer is just not engaging with you. They don't find the time to meet up with you. They don't. The engagement level is very, very fickle and small. These are warning signals which say that, listen, I got to go back to the drawing board and see what's going on. And there is never harm in doing that. I'm repeating that. People make this mistake of thinking that it is not a good thing to go back to the drawing board. I'd say no. It's best before than later on when you just can't back out. Having said that, if you don't time right, the intuition does not play right, you have the risk of entering before the time is right for your product. And that could mean burning a lot of money. Guys, the real fact is that marketing is all about a thorough, dispassionate understanding of what is it that you want to do, where is it that you want to go with your product. And I mentioned dispassionate because it's very necessary. That passion for product design is one thing, but dispassionate for getting into the market is very important, because you need to be very clear when you need to go back and redraw the product program. Pivot, change. Don't hesitate to do that, because it is very necessary that you don't burn up the money. If you burn up the money, you'll be left with nothing, and it will not be a good end. So avoid doing that. And apart from that, it'll completely harm your brand. I mean, you'll have to, it's not so easy to create a brand. And harming it before you've started creating it is not a good thing at all. Finally, we come to this aspect of how do we discover the potential customer base? And then how do we increase or decrease this thing? It's a very simple exercise. Target base, the demographic profile, salary, income, sex of the user segment, age segment, educational qualification, geographical location, the works. Once you've got the demography right, you get to the psychographics of the person. What is it? And psychographics is essential because remember, your product service is solving a pain point. Now, you need to understand what is my pain point, first of all, and what is my expectation of solution of that pain point. Your solution may not be my answer. You need to, you as a product service supplier, need to understand my thinking. If my thinking is incorrect, your communication to correct my thinking is important. But if you tell me that, listen, this is not your solution, here is the solution, I may or may not agree. That's my evaluation of psychographics becomes very essential for your messaging. You need to know and understand completely as to what is the competition doing, whether alternative product or the same product. What are my alternatives is also very important to understand. As a user, I may have the option of not going with you, but going with something else, which is totally different maybe, but which is an alternative solution. Never rule out alternatives. Alternatives are a very strong competition, and you need to evaluate that along with that. And once you've done all of this, a thorough analysis of your own product, basis of all these understanding. Is the product fitting in? That is very important. And that is because the customer needs to, for that customer base, the whole idea needs to gel in all together. That's what the whole fitment will fall in. And that is what this whole exercise will result in: the product market fit and the communication, because you've done the psychographic profiling, you've understood what it is, and that's how we'll do. So to summarize all of this, these are the 6 key features of what I'm talking about. Understand the product market fit very, very thoroughly, and very, very thoroughly. Don't skim on market research and consumer research. That is going to be the hallmark of your products, service, and your growth. Don't make shortcuts there. You should know your competition thoroughly, your competitive field. And as I said, today it is not only, if you're looking at the India market, you're not only looking at India, you're looking globally, because the supplier could be sitting, an app guy could be sitting in, as I said, beyond some remote place in Mexico and ruining your life. You need to be aware of everything, time correctly. Unfortunately, there are, as I said, and regretfully, there are no clear formulas here. Intuition is a very important factor. You can't rule out intuition, and therefore, I can't say, or nobody can predict accurately that this is the time to enter in. Keep the risk of entering at the wrong time very, very open in your front, and therefore, once you establish it, promptly stop or correct, and identify your potential customer base very, very accurately. Do a thorough research on that. To my mind, once you've done all these 6 steps in a dispassionate manner, and in this, when you're doing this sales, when you're doing this analysis, be very, very dispassionate. Lose all your passion with your product and your company. Become dispassionate. Assume that it's your money you're burning and you have only that limited supply. And do a very thorough research. And once you have done that, you are surely, hopefully, on the way to success. That's that's my bit there. I don't know whether this makes sense. It's not something that is. Unfortunately, I have no ready-made formulas for this, but this is how it is, and I'll be happy if there are any questions. Hello, am I still there?
Yes, Rajiv. We do not have any questions as of now in the chat box. So the
Okay,
participants, yeah, let's just wait for a minute.
sure.
Okay, so we have a question. If our service is easily replicable, in
Mhm.
such cases, which strategy we must use to enter the market and sustain in the market?
If your service is easily replicable in such cases, which strategy we must use to enter the market and sustain in the market? That's a tough one. This is some person by the name of Siddhi, am I right? It's a tough one. I wish there was a replaceable product is open to a lot of hits. If I had no option out, what I would look at is building up loyalty by my service level rather than pricing, because product is replaceable, as you say. I would look at developing a serious service loyalty and provide and beat the competition with service. The only drawback with that is that your ability to reach all the customers is severely impaired, and you need to therefore have a very clear focus on your target geography, your target customer, and deliver the service. Uh, Price point fight is never a fight. That's not going to work. I don't know whether that answers your query, but that's the best solution you have. You have no other option out there. Hello?
Yes, sir. So we have.
Sorry? Very similar to what I just answered before. Mobile payments is again an animal beaten to death, as per me, and that's my personal opinion. You may agree or disagree to it. But so you're again treading the same problem. unfortunately, in mobile payments, you are looking at a customer base which is so huge that there's no way uh, to reach out. So you, if I was you, I would start thinking of a differentiator. I would not go in because I know that I'm up against a Google Pay and a Paytm and a God knows what else who are there, and I won't open that battlefield at all. Not as a startup. Customer acquisition cost is a very that's a very wide thing. It depends on where exactly is your customer base and how your uh, in which segment are you looking at. A customer acquisition cost could be, and it's very, it could be from your marketing expense to your communication expense to your operating expense in terms of manpower, field visits, customer visits. I don't know. So an acquisition and all that expense over a period of time, generating a certain amount of customers for you, would what you would set up as what they call as CAC. But, there are too many elements to it. What you need to be, what I would do is I would put every cost and determine the CAC very accurately, because at the end of the day, you're trying to create value for your investors, and for yourself. And if you're not able to understand how you are going to acquire a customer in terms of money spent on a customer, you will be fooling nobody but yourself. So I would put in every element in there and say that, see, this is my customer acquisition cost, and try to better it if you can, by not only reducing the cost, but maybe by increasing the customer you acquire for the same cost. The two ways to change it. But an acquisition cost, any element of expense that you incur to acquire a customer is part of CSE. God, God Almighty. I've been in an institute nearly 35 years back, and frankly, I'm sorry. On subject matters of these, I'm sorry. But I will be happy to get my team to come back to you and provide you a list. We do have that, but offhand, I wouldn't have subject matter references as such. Too much of gray hair on my head to know most of these, learning it the hard way in the field. Yeah, that would be very idealistic. Uh, well, Govind, well, any legal, legitimate business has an acquisition cost. And I'm not aware of any product which has zero cost. Mhm. Which one? Look up. So we have a B2B ed tech startup targeted towards colleges to increase their outward placements. How to handle call as it is generally a 40-day sale closing cycle. Uh, targeted at Targeted towards colleges to increase their outward placements. The recruit When the outward placement, I'm presuming he's talking about the recruitment or employment of the college from college students. How to handle college sale, as it generally is a 40-day cycle. Yeah, 40-day sales cycle for the exercise of recruitment, but the work would be starting before. No college waits for the last day to start recruitment process for their children. So the the timing for delivering the product may be 40 days, but you have the balance 320 days. They're not going to shut shop and say, listen, I'm only going to be concerned only. Don't wait for that. 40 days is your delivery period, that you've got to get the people hired and onboarded by the companies or given offer letters in 40 days time. That's fine, but that doesn't mean that you need to wait. You need to wait the rest of the year for those 40 days to start. You do your homework before and pitch in and tie up, because you need to then also go to the corporations who are going to come in and do the hiring. I would reckon that's what I would do. I would not leave it for. I would not look at 40 days as my time zone. That's not the time. That's not right. Did that answer your question? I hope it did, because I would not look at 40 days. Which one? How to expand the B2B scale up for us? I do not know. Look up Sahu. When you say us means what is us? This is the B2B ed tech. How to expedite the B2B scale up? B2B scale up, the only way to expedite is by visits to the B2B segment. You can't, there is no shortcut to any scale up. I wish there were shortcuts to scale up, but there are none that I'm aware of. So look up, you may have to do some hard work out there, my friend. Uh, we are just in the starting phase and our product cannot be easily replicated. Not impossible. So how to create an entry barrier for other players? Uh, Komal Chandra has said this. Well, the easiest way to create entry barriers are two. Number one, if you are not a easily replicable product, you have got a first step going. Next thing you need to do is make sure that you get an IP or or a patent for your product. That should give you that comfort of having a first stage of entry barrier created. And once you've done that, the next bit is to make sure, at the end of the day, the only thing which keeps your customers with you and coming back to you is the ability of the product to deliver what the customer wants and the service that the customer gets from you. Those two things are non-negotiable facts, and you need to make sure that that happens, along with the fact that you have an irreplaceable product. So go ahead and patent it before somebody else does it, and you are left at the lurch. That's what I would do, Komal. That's my advice to you. How can we do more market research in a short time? Um, well, if you find the secret, let me know as well, Aditya. I am not aware of doing more market research in short time. Swapnil Bhagat has said something. He wants to know more about World 5. So I'll just give a brief about my organization, my firm, my fund. We are a fund which is driven to investing in technology organizations. We are a joint venture with a US fund headquartered in New York. Uh, we look at technology. And we have a process. We have designed our own process to evaluate customers, which is actually online. It's a platform-driven venture, which is a first in India. Uh, we are looking at investing. We invest anything between uh, about $1 million into an investment, uh, which we are happy to look at doing in two stages if required, but not more than that. So that will give you the leverage of growing. But our money is all for growth, and that's what our fund's philosophy is. I hope that answers your questions, Swapnil, and I hope we do look forward to seeing you on our platform. Please do visit our website and you'll have that. Right. Ekta, how to price the product? Well, there are certain factors, Ekta, which are considered essential in the pricing of a product, which is your cost of goods, whether it be in kind or in cash in terms of your buying product and making something out of that. So that is one element which you need to certainly completely cost out. I would also look at intangible costs or indirect costs that are being spent to build the product as what they call as R&D cost. But remember, R&D cost has to be factored over a period of time. You can't build it up in one shot. So you need to build up over you need to have a strategy of what is the volume going to reach, and then base it on that volume. You determine the time element and the cost of that. I would go about in that manner. And post that, there's got to be a tangible gross margin the product churns out, because your overheads and your operating expenses have got to be taken care of by those gross margins. Now, that may not happen immediately, but at some point in time, it has got to deliver. If it doesn't deliver, then you're going to have a loss making product also, and that's not going to be a very good scenario for the VCs either, because they'll run away if you're at some point in time, if your product does not break even, it's not going to make sense. Operating break even, I'm talking about. So I hope, Ekta, that answers your question. Uh, I think we've answered all of that. I don't see any more. Pleasure. Thank you very much. And all the best to everybody. And I hope you achieve success that you're looking at. Thank you.